federal workers as soon as today that a shutdown appears imminent. It would begin on Sunday unless Congress extends the deadline. Millions of employees and military personnel may stop receiving pay. Museums and passport offices could also close, and housing, food, and health aid may be disrupted. House Republicans today did hold their first hearings as part of an inquiry into whether to impeach President Joe Biden in a bid to legitimize the formalization of an investigation that has yet to unearth any damaging evidence that the then vice president profited from his son's work in Ukraine and elsewhere. U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan today denied Donald Trump's demand that she recuse herself from his federal election obstruction case, saying attorneys for the former president had applied a hypersensitive, cynical, and suspicious reading of two of her statements in sentencing January 6, 2021 Capitol attack defendants to accuse her of bias. And the few striking auto workers showed up for the Trump speech at a non-union factory. Trump's speech at a non-union auto parts company was also geared towards blue-collar workers in the midst of a united auto workers strike. Now, President Joe Biden made history on Tuesday when he joined a picket line outside Detroit, becoming the first sitting president to do so. In a new study, Black Americans express broad concerns about how they are depicted in the news media, with majorities saying they see racist or negative depictions and a lack of effort to cover broad segments of their community. 4 in 5 Black adults say they see racist or racially insensitive depictions of their race in the news, either often or sometimes. Now, this is according to a new Pew Research report. 7 Republican presidential hopefuls clamoring for attention as their time to overtake former President Donald Trump grows shorter. Those 7 Republican potentials showed a new level of combativeness as they interrupted, disputed, and at times even insulted one another on the debate stage last night in Simi Valley, California. The GOP presidential hopefuls attacked one another and President Biden. They also took aim for the first time at Donald Trump, the Republican frontrunner. At times, these GOP hopefuls were shouting over one another, and the candidates disagreed on the Ukraine. They blamed Biden for the UAW strike and said both parties would bear the blame if the government does shut down, as we are on track to do this Sunday. Well, President Biden has come out fighting. He issued a broad and blistering attack against former President Trump today, accusing Trump and his would-be successor of inciting violence, seeking unfettered power, and plotting to undermine the Constitution if he returns to office in next year's elections. Now, in his most direct condemnation of his leading Republican challenger, Biden portrayed Trump as a budding autocrat with no fidelity to the tenets of American democracy and who is motivated by hatred and a desire for retribution. Donald Trump is gearing up for a trial, or he should be, because that civil fraud trial over accusations that he inflated the value of his properties by billions of dollars will likely begin on Monday, after a New York appeals court today rejected the former president's attempt to delay the trial. The appeals court, in a terse 2-page order, effectively turned aside for the now lawsuit that Trump had filed against the trial judge. So, judges already determined liability exists. This trial is going to be primarily about damages and about whether Donald Trump can continue to do business in the state of New York. You are watching and listening to Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. This is hour 2 of Areva Martin in real time, and you know what we do in hour 2. We go deep and we dig behind the headlines on some of today's biggest stories. Now, some of these stories make big headlines while others have big impact. Today, we are talking about you could call it that circus, that brawl that complete disaster that was characterized and purported to be a Republican presidential nominee debate happening last night at the Ronald Reagan Library in Simi Valley, California. The bickering, the finger pointing, the talking over each other, the disruptions were so significant that even Governor Ron DeSantis, who was one of the nominees on the stage last night, said if he had been at home watching the debates, he would have turned them off. And I can't, stop repeating the quote of the night, which came from Nikki Haley when she addressed Vivek Ramaswamy. Every time I hear you, little boy Vivek, she was saying, I feel a little bit dumber. Yes, she said that. She said that on national television. She said it with conviction. And I think we're all going to be saying that for at least the next year as this presidential election heats up. So in this hour, talking to one of my friends, political strategist, Democratic communication strategist, Richard Greene. He's been on the show many times. I look to him after debates to get his take. And we're going to be talking when we come forward about who the winners of last night were, if any, and definitely who the losers were, and what any of this may mean going forward for the general election that's happening in November of next year. And what about Donald Trump asking the Republican National Committee to put a stop to what he called this, circus, this debacle of a debate, saying we don't need any more of these. I'm already winning. Just give me the crown. When we come forward, more on KBLA Talk 1580.
Gotta stay fresh, ma. House shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4, only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive.
We are back, and this is hour 2 of Areva Martin in Real Time. And in this hour, I'm joined by Democratic strategist and communication strategist Richard Greene. He is a friend to the show, has been on with me many days and many times after there have been big presidential debates. And I was excited to talk to Richard today because last night got a little bit crazy. And I don't know if I can say it's crazier than before, but it was definitely so beneath what you would expect for a presidential debate. I wanted to talk with Richard so we can give you our unfiltered opinions about who were the winners and the losers and what all of this means for the presidential election next year. Thank you, Richard, and welcome back to the show. Always a pleasure to see you, my friend. Let's start with Nikki Haley. I think she had the line of the night. I mean, it was the most, I don't know if she wrote it in advance, or if she's just quick on her feet like that, but oh my goodness, I think we're going to all be, saying that line over and over again. But overall, just sound off. What did you think about last night?
Well, I kind of don't know where to start or if any of this matters. I mean, what the hell is going on? What are they doing? What are they running for? In my entire political career, I have never seen a primary in either party where one candidate was so incredibly out in front of everybody else. I mean, it is, unless Donald Trump dies, chokes on a chicken wing or too much Diet Coke, or is in jail without the ability to communicate at some point between now and November 5, he's going to be the Republican nominee. So the question is, what is Nikki Haley? What is Ron DeSantis? What are these people doing? Are they auditioning for vice president? Trump seemed to indicate that he doesn't really care about any of those 7. But I would say that I would take what you said about Nikki Haley's comment, and I would apply it to the entire Republican Party today. Every time I listen to Kevin McCarthy or any of the people talking about impeaching Joe Biden or anything else about the government shutdown, I think we all feel dumber. So we love Nikki Haley for saying that. And I think she's the only one, Areva, that I am afraid of. I would be afraid of Chris Christie, because I thought Chris Christie had the second best line, not so much the Donald Duck part, but when he looks straight in the camera, he goes, "I'm talking to you, Donald, I know you're watching, you can't help yourself." But
let me stop you for a second, Richard. Chris Christie, whatever he may have done last night, when he doubled down on the comment about Joe Biden sleeping with Dr. Jill Biden, the misogyny of that statement, was not lost on women across this country. So he's just, he's going nowhere fast anyhow. And so to the extent he needed another nail in the coffin, he just put the other nail in the coffin.
But we owe him a debt of gratitude for making that comment, because it set up Mike Pence with the most awkward statement I think I've ever heard in a debate. You want to tell people what that was?
No,
I don't want to say it again.
No, you said, I don't think I heard. Maybe I missed that statement. Or what are you talking about? I want to make sure we're on the same page.
It was the weirdest thing ever, right? So this is Mike Pence, who won't be alone in a room with another woman. No one in the world can imagine him having sex at all and don't want to. So after Chris Christie said that about Joe Biden sleeping with someone who's part of the teachers union, Mike Pence felt it was somehow important to remind people that he, for 30-something years, has been sleeping with a teacher who is not part of the teachers union. And it was poorly delivered. He knew it was stupid, but it's like, dude, if you have to prove that you have a penis or whatever you're trying to do, that was not the time or the way to do it.
And that just goes, though, to the absurdity of the debate. They're debating about sleeping, basically you're talking about your wives. So
yes,
this whole
right.
sleeping with, it just shows how, in the gutter, right? When you don't have anything important to say, when you don't have anything substantive to say, you just make stupid, comments like that. So whether you're sleeping with someone that's in the teachers union or not has nothing to do with you and your ability to, govern the country or even garner the nomination in this case. Why was there so much, though, Richard, focus on ridiculous topics like that? The curtains, right? Tim Scott literally trying to, revive his dead campaign. I guess someone told him in the first debate he was too timid, he was too quiet. So he comes out being super aggressive, but not on anything of substance, not on anything related to what the American people care about. The curtains, curtain gate.
These two South Carolinians fighting like a married couple that is headed
a married 18-year-old, 12-year-old couple, like kids, like petulant children. You had the $50,000 curtains. Well, you could have taken the curtains down. Well, you were in Congress. Really? The curtains?
But Areva, let's step back and let's just admit that, we're both lawyers, we've taken some time to educate ourselves in our lives. When you have a political party, and this is who their audience is, that still today overwhelmingly says they like and support and approve of Donald Trump, we know there's not a lot of gray matter involved in what's going on. And so I guess somehow they said, you know what, let's get as close as we can to Housewives of Simi Valley or whatever the hell it is. And because that's the intellectual level of the audience that we need to try to pry away from the orange antichrist.
Okay, so yes, you're right. And they were appealing to some demographic, obviously not a thinking, right? A demographic that is engaged in politics and really cares about our democracy. Here is the biggest thing that was not talked about, Richard, and it's Donald Trump for criminal indictments. It's the determination yesterday before these debates started that Donald Trump inflated his assets, his properties, and for loans, and deflated them for purposes of evading taxes. A summary judgment motion granted by a judge in New York, basically saying we don't even need testimony. We don't need a trial in this civil fraud case brought by the Attorney General. The papers are so persuasive. The overwhelming evidence is right here on these documents that I can make that determination. How is it that if you're running for president against someone who now has been determined to be a rapist, let's not forget about E. Jean Carroll, a rapist and now a fraud, defrauder, a cheat, that you not bring that up? You're not really running for president.
First of all, I don't think I'm looking forward to that trial because I think that's a big deal. And I think Letitia James, she's going for it. And I love her for that. And there's, what is it, $250 million? I mean, a huge amount.
The possibility of losing Trump Tower, having to sell off major properties because he can't do business in New York. This could be more major than any of these criminal indictments.
Well, listen, we saw with Fox News and Dominion, get Republicans where they really can be heard, and that's in their pocketbook. I don't know why it wasn't brought up, but I have to tell you, I don't think it makes a difference. Listen, Donald Trump, and we've talked about this before, the truest thing, perhaps the only true thing this pathological liar has ever said is that he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and no one would care. And so this trial, all the 4 other criminal trials, they're not that bad. The trial next week is not as bad as shooting somebody in cold blood on Fifth Avenue. So it's not going to make a difference to whittle away support for the orange antichrist. And I am, quite honestly, I'm getting a little concerned. And going back to Nikki Haley, because I think Nikki Haley has been the winner of these debates. I mentioned last time, and you laughed at me, that Vivek Ramaswamy, not Swarmy, although he is Swarmy, was going to rise in popularity because he's kind of Trump, a younger, more agile.
But that hasn't really happened, Richard. His numbers haven't skyrocketed.
His notoriety has, but his numbers haven't. I agree with you. So I will say, in a rare
we
moment,
know his name now more than we did 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, but he's not polling in double digits. He's not getting close to being competitive in the race. So whatever he's doing is not working. People see right through it. Everybody understands he's just a loudmouth, a blowhorn. Nobody's buying anything that he said. This Trump Jr. act is not working with the voters. At least if the voters want a Trump, they're going to vote for Trump. They're not going to vote for a clone of Trump. So I don't even understand his strategy.
Okay, so you're going to be very happy. I'm going to admit that I was wrong. Doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I mean, the dude is eloquent. He's polished. He's a billionaire, guy. But we've done that before, right? We played that record. We've seen that movie. So he's not offering anything fresh, new, innovative, and cloning yourself after someone else. I mean, that's the worst I think that you can do. I mean, being inauthentic is horrible, and everybody sees right through that.
But I'm gonna say that I may end up being right, because if for some reason I'm giving you the win right now. But if Donald Trump is no longer in the race for some reason, I think he may actually be poised to take over a significant percentage of the Donald Trump vote. And maybe that's his strategy. But back to Nikki Haley for a second. She's like almost a normal human being.
Almost. She was very normal at times when she was governor.
I know.
The effort to appease Donald Trump, right, and the MAGA crowd that makes her do really stupid things that are out of her character, things that I think are causing her to stay in the single digits.
Right. And I think that qualifies for having sold your soul. And I find that repulsive. But the truth is,
well, talk about selling your soul. Let's talk about Tim Scott looking into the camera, saying that he's been discriminated against, that he's a Black man, that he takes issue with Ron DeSantis's recharacterization of slavery. Yet, America is not a racist country. What was the purpose of that completely hollow, fallacious, completely idiotic statement by a Black man running for president, and Tim Scott in the South of South Carolina? What was the purpose of that? Who was he trying to appeal to?
First of all, I don't think he's that smart. He's just recycling all sorts of crazy stuff that is superficially attractive, but a half an inch thick. But I have to tell you, as a white man, I was offended by that. You know what he said? No.
I think you could be a purple man and be offended by that, because it was so disingenuous and it just seemed to come from nowhere. Let's talk about the preparation for this debate. It just seemed like they all decided that they needed to be combative, that they needed to be quote unquote aggressive and forceful. And there was so much talking over each other, so much disruption of the process that it made it difficult to watch. And I think a lot of people probably tuned out.
But again, these are people who are voting for a reality TV star who is a chaos maker, who creates drama with every breath that he takes. And I think that's become the new normal for the Republican Party. So I would be surprised, and I think they would lose audience, Areva, if they had a PBS-style serious debate. I mean, I think we're lucky that there was any policy content in there at all. I mean, seriously, I come back to what I said, which I think is one of the most surreal things I've ever seen in my life, that this man is not only polling above 50% within the Republican Party, I'm talking about Donald Trump, but there are poll after poll is saying that he is close to Joe Biden or even frickin' beating him, which if he puts himself together with Nikki Haley, I am concerned.
I'm not concerned at all. Doesn't mean we shouldn't work our butts off. Doesn't mean we should take anything for granted. But I think the same thing we saw in the last election, we're going to see again, and perhaps even more strikingly this time. And you know, we have to remind people, and you know this, Joe Biden came out today, with fist out and really attacking Donald Trump. And as the year progresses, as this year progresses, as next year begins, we're going to see ad after ad after ad. We're going to be inundated with ads reminding us that he has been deemed a rapist, reminding us that Trump has been deemed a cheat, that the billionaire persona was all fake. It was one big fraud. And I think when people start to tune in, not the insiders, I don't put any faith in those polls. I don't know who they're talking to. I don't know what kinds of questions and how they're spinning the questions, because we know that matters in polls. But I think when the evidence gets presented to the American people and people start to tune in, what is being pretty much brushed off today, I think people are going to start taking very seriously. When we come forward, I want to talk about Donald Trump asking the RNC to just trash the next series of debates and basically said, just crown me the king, make this a coronation. And what might happen if Donald Trump decides not even to debate Joe Biden? When we come forward, more on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest spot.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4, only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
We're back and we're talking about the GOP debate that took place in Simi Valley, California last night. It was the second debate of the presidential candidates who would like to be the nominee on the GOP side. Asa Hutchinson, who was on the stage for the first debate, did not qualify for the second debate. And President or former President Donald Trump was not present yesterday. He also was not present at the first debate. And now he's calling on the Republican National Committee to pretty much do away with the other debates that are planned for the nominees. He's saying, what's the purpose? I am so far ahead of all of these candidates. These debates are of no consequence. They have no real purpose, because I'm clearly going to be the nominee. Richard Greene is joining me in this hour as we are breaking down the debates and talking about the winners and the losers. So, Richard, what do you make of Donald Trump's plea to the RNC to just, trash the rest of any debates that are planned? Because he's saying there's no purpose. They're not going to win. I have already as you said, gotten so far ahead of any of the candidates that these debates are pretty useless.
So newsflash, Areva, Donald Trump does not believe in democracy. I mean, he's a fascist. He's anti-democratic. He's a demagogue. He's a dictator. He truly, truly, truly believes that. I mean, every single thing he's done his entire public career shows that he is above the law, or he believes he's above the law. He's above the processes. He considers himself to be at a higher level of human being, based on, quite honestly, his malignant narcissism, which really reflects the fact that he deep down doesn't believe he's worth anything, but that's a whole nother show. So I am far more concerned about the lack of debate for the Democratic Party than I am for the Republican Party. And I think you're going to bite me on that, because I think that Joe Biden may not be the horse we want to ride into this fight.
Well, he's the horse that we have. So we're going to have to stick with Joe Biden. And you know, Richard, better than anyone, that when you are voting for a president, you are voting for an administration, you are voting for an approach to governance. And so Joe Biden may not be the almighty, but when you consider the alternative, there is not even a match, because Joe Biden has a cabinet of 25 plus people and a vice president who have been delivering for the American people since they have all been in office. And Donald Trump, I think Joe Biden put it best today. Donald Trump wants to be president so that he can mete out retribution for those people he thinks have, done him wrong. He's telling the Republican extremists, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene and company, shut down the government, defund the Department of Justice so that they can stop their prosecution of this case against me in New York. So I don't even understand why we make any comparison between Trump and Biden. Trump has no policy positions. He doesn't care about helping the American people. He just wants to be in office so that he can get back and do harm to the people he thinks have done harm to him. But hold that thought. I want to go back to Nikki Haley. You were very, very complimentary of her. So I wanted to go and see what other experts thought about her performance last night. So I went to the good old Washington Post. And it's the New York Times, forgive me, their rival. And they did a breakdown, the winners and losers of last night. And when Nikki Haley came up, everybody, and this was a combination of Dems and Republican pundits, they were all pretty hard on Nikki Haley. They said she, of course, had that famous line. But other than that, they said she did not deliver in the way that she had in the first debate, that her performance, here's one of the, Michelle Cottle said, her performance was as feisty as last time, but she seemed less in control, less focused. A disappointing follow-up. This is another commentator to her well-received first debate. She mostly made an impression playing Amy Klobuchar to Vivek Ramaswamy's Pete Buttigieg, a show of feminine contempt for a male tyro that was fun enough to watch, but didn't build on the momentum towards second place that she needed from the evening. What do you say to those commentators?
I say they're operating in an alternate universe. Sorry, I'm outside at USC. An alternate universe where thoughtful prefrontal cortex kinds of discussion are valued. That's not the game. I mean, she was up there in this precious position as the only woman, a rare, strong woman in the Republican Party. And I think the whole thing is what people are going to remember who are predisposed to want to vote for her or move that there is even a woman at that level is she stood up to Tim Scott. She was showing strength.
Well, let me stop you there. This is what they say about that show of strength, as you describe it. They said, she The Governor Haley decided to play the role that Vivek Ramaswamy played last time, frequently interrupting and attacking others. This will earn her good press, but not many more votes. She's auditioning for a television slot rather than the GOP nomination.
I think she's auditioning for vice president. And I think if you look at the values and the communication values of the guy who's going to be the likely nominee, he's not moved by thoughtful dialogue. He's moved by someone who's going to fight, and particularly fight for him. And the thing where we go back to her selling her soul, she didn't do. I am certain that if we took her into a private room and said, "What do you think of Donald Trump?" her words would be not dissimilar from Chris Christie or Asa Hutchinson. So I think that's the real job. How does she do this? How does she get up, stand on that stage, and continue to walk this incredibly fine line, Areva? You know, be sensible, not overtly sell her soul while she doesn't criticize a guy that she probably thinks is disgusting. But so I lose respect for her, but I think it's a complex game, and I think she's playing it pretty well. Listen, I think all of them are disgusting. You know, the only one who's not, you know, except for some of his other comments, is Chris Christie, who is calling out the 800.
Chris Christie is duplicitous and disgusting. Let's keep moving. Though. We got a lot of disgusting people to talk about. Let's talk about Ron DeSantis. This was supposed to be the number one do that could take out Donald Trump. I'm going back to my New York Times article, looking at what the commentators had to say. Let me get your take, and I'm going to tell you what others of your profession are saying. What was Ron DeSantis' score in your book?
I think he has a ceiling of 7.5. I thought he was a 6.75. He's just inherently boring.
So here's what one of them says. If one is currently not leading a presidential primary, one should not debate as if one is. He was barely there. And when he was, he seemed that he wished he were elsewhere. His strongest moment was on the subject of abortion, a topic which he believes he shares more in common with voters than he actually does. Do you think that was his strongest point?
Probably. But here's what I love about that issue, Areva. That the Republican Party is walking into a landmine. I mean, in the primaries, they have to be all about, you know, a 6-week abortion ban or banning abortion altogether. And we have seen state after state how that has backfired on them when you actually have more than just Republicans voting. So I love the abortion debate, and I think they're all handling it about as well as they can handle it. But it is a losing issue. Although, as you may know, Joe Biden today said his main focus is not going to be on that. It's going to be on democracy. But I think we have that as an issue. But again, I don't think Ron DeSantis
that could change.
Is going anywhere.
His main focus is going to be on what's going to get him elected. And women across this country is going to be our main focus. Let's talk about Ron DeSantis' very disingenuous comment about the slavery, reinvention of what slavery is. The guy makes these really tough policies, but on the national stage, he doesn't seemingly want to stand up to them. He wants to gaslight and mislead the people, the American public, about what he has done, what he says he's so proud of, what he's done in Florida. When we come forward, more about Ron DeSantis, and did he have a performance last night that can, get him back to the number 2 slot, or is he pretty much DOA? I'm going to talk to Richard Greene about that. Stick with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580. You're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black. At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation in scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Connection established. Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews.
Follow the leader.
We're back. All right, Richard, did Ron DeSantis do himself any favors by just saying Donald Trump was absent? He seemingly took a couple of swipes at Donald Trump for not being on the debate stage. However, he didn't talk about Donald Trump's criminal indictments. He didn't talk about Donald Trump being deemed a rapist or a cheat. But he did, I guess, in his own way, take Donald Trump on. You know, do you think that mattered to the voters he's trying to appeal to?
I would say no for him, because Ron DeSantis has a brand, and he has spent the last, 4 years kissing Donald Trump's you-know-what. And I think he's pretty good. And it's this unbelievably difficult strategic position these people are in of how far can they go, right? I mean, every single time they say something negative about Donald Trump, it seems not to help them or hurt them, right? But there is this tremendous risk that everything's going to backfire, and everything they've dreamed about for the last whatever number of years is gonna all go down the drain if they say too much. But if they don't say more than what they're currently saying, they're not going to move the needle. And then you factor into that strategy of, if they want to be vice president, they cannot criticize Donald Trump beyond a certain point. I don't, honestly, if I were their advisor, I would say switch parties. Your party is completely insane. Your candidate is completely insane. You lose credibility every single time you open your mouth. But then I watch, as we talked about, Areva, I see the polling, and it looks like at this point, Donald Trump and his administration could be what we're looking at for the next 4 years.
Well, that's not true, and I'm not going to speak that into life. And I think the more we reject that, the more likely it is that that becomes our reality, that Donald Trump is sitting somewhere under house arrest or in a jail, because the odds of him beating 91 criminal charges are close to zero. But last couple minutes, I got to talk about Mike Pence. Give me your assessment of how our former VP did.
Again, I think the only person that is close to as boring as he is Ron DeSantis. I mean, it's just unbelievable how lackluster he is, and he seems so proud of himself if he ever says something with a little bit of oomph. I mean, he's so polished. There's no there, and I just love his face. Again, we talked about the sport where he proudly was talking about sleeping with a woman.
His wife of 38 years, mind you.
Right. And
I think for me, Richard, about Mike Pence is, you said Tim Scott doesn't seem that bright. And I think I agree with you on that. I say about Mike Pence, he seems too slow. He just isn't quick enough. In a debate, you've got to be quick. You've got to be able to respond on the fly. His responses are so, just plotting and methodical. And he is running seemingly for a party that no longer exists. He has this kind of like blind, loyalty to Reaganism. And that's not the party. It's a Trump party. And he's still clinging to a party that has since been dead. And I think his most effective way that he can have any impact, and you just said it's risky, is to talk about January 6th and the harm caused to the country, to the democracy by Donald Trump on January 6th, because he was the guy there. He has the inside knowledge about that. But that's risky, as you said, because if he talks about that and criticizes Donald Trump and says Donald Trump deserves to be treated like every other insurrectionist that has to face consequences, then he loses the MAGA base, which he's already lost. I mean, the MAGA base is not with him anyhow. So
listen, if I were to give strategic advice to Mike Pence, it would be to amplify way more than he does the fact that he was right there for those 4 years that most Americans say they had a better quality of life. I mean, I don't think it's true, but they say it because it was before inflation and before, COVID really, took the wheels out from under the economy. And for him to say, I was in the room with Donald Trump every moment in the Oval Office, I was part of the decision-making process. I do not have 91 indictments against me. I am going to be here on November 5th and for the next 4 years. We're not certain about Mr. Trump. If you want a continuation of those good times, even though I'm not as fun as your hero, you got to elect me. I think that's his best shot.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a winning shot, but I tend to agree with you. He needs to, and that's how most vice presidents run, right? They run on the record if the record is considered good, and they run away from the record if the record is considered bad. And to the base that they're talking to, you're right, they consider it a great record. So why isn't he running on it? But I think the stench of Donald Trump is so great. I don't think he wants to really have people have an image in their minds of him being in the Oval Office with Donald Trump, because that's too close to being there for the insurrection. Okay, real quickly, Vivek Ramaswamy deserves, I guess, 2 minutes of our time. He's irritating, obviously, to the other candidates and to other people. He's fun. He's the spark on the stage, but it's not translating into votes. So what's this guy's end game? It's obviously not to be president. He knows he's not going to be the president.
Here's the end game for a lot of them, and that is they will never in their entire lives be given this kind of a platform or an audience. and they're going to milk it however they can. They're going to get booked on Fox News a lot more. They're going to have speaking engagements where they can make money. They can protect.
But Vivek doesn't need money. He's already so wealthy.
No, I'm talking about all of the guys. For him, I think he has such a massive ego that it's just, oh my God, he's having a public orgasm every minute. He's out there with this big a stage, and he's going to milk it for all it's worth, and he will not drop out. No,
he's not dropping out. It's too much attention. You're right. When he goes into cities, he's being cheered. Was trying to rap, use Eminem's lyrics before that got shut down with a cease and desist letter. I agree with you. For him, it's pure ego. Doug Burgum, nobody talks about him, but he was there. He was a nice guy. He seemed cogent, seemed smart enough. Why is Doug there?
He loves, I have to tell you, Vivek Ramaswamy loves hearing himself talk. So there's going to be an endless supply of that. Doug Burgum, actually, he's probably the closest to a real human being. But he has about as much chance of being the nominee as you do.
And he's not going to be second. Let's talk real quickly. I don't see Trump picking any of these candidates because he's going to be pissed off that they ran against him. He's not the kind of guy that's going to say, well, Nikki Haley, you're a female, you're a woman of color, maybe you can help balance out the ticket. He's too vindictive. You had the audacity, the unmitigated gall to challenge me. And whatever 1 or 2 or 5 negative things Nikki has said about him, he's going to hold her responsible for those things.
I totally agree with you, except there's one factor here, and that is his end game is he doesn't want to go to jail. And if his pollsters say, Mr. Trump, all the other Fox News hosts or whoever it is that you're going to want to choose as your VP will cause you to lose, even though they are appropriately, adoring you. But Nikki Haley gives you your best shot to win by a lot. I think he will make that decision reluctantly, but he will, because
Richard, there is no evidence in the record that Donald Trump follows good advice from lawyers, particularly, totally doesn't follow their advice, or from his political strategists. So you may be right. That might be advice given to him, but I cannot imagine that his ego and his vindictive spirit would allow him to even follow good advice.
Who's he going to pick?
I'm not sure. And to the extent it is, we know Carrie Lake is down at Mar-a-Lago auditioning every day. She's trying to be the pick. That remains to be seen. He likes surprising folks. I think whoever it is going to be someone that's completely not on the radar, someone that none of us are thinking about because he likes that shock value. We are out of time. Thank you so much, Richard. I know you were at a conference, so appreciate you making time for this interview. Your insights are invaluable. We're going to continue to watch what happens with these GOP candidates. The next show coming up is the Raw Report with Robin Ayers right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Don't touch that dial.
Thanks. If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The 3 people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword.
A white woman in a chokehold and squeezing her neck before she passes out. The paper